Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all participants.
Salam.
Wassalam.
Okay, so we will start our afternoon session for Module 5. The title is the Research Ethics and Safety by Associate Professor Dr. Khasnur binti Abdul Malek, and then take over by Associate Professor Dr. Yong Soon Kong. Dr. Khasnur, if you are ready, we may start.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To Madam Chairperson, sorry, I missed your name earlier. So yes, thank you very much for the invite and welcome to all the new postgraduates candidates of UiTM. My name is Khasnur and I would like to update and give some information with regards to as part of your research journey related to ethics. So what we'll be doing is that we'll just go through an overview of ethics procedures and what it is, okay? So let me just introduce to you who are our team members. So ethics is basically health, yeah. The secretariat are part like the research management centers, and the team that, let me just use a pointer, yeah. So this is the team. Okay, the unit for unit ethics and publications is led by Professor Dr. Insignio Dr. Alizon, and under her we have the subunit ethics and subunit publications. So under the ethics is myself, and we have two EO, executive officers, Cik Amal as well as Miss Lisa, who will be most likely be the person whom you'll be calling and speak to if you call us. And then we have two clerks, Puan Ainul as well as Puan Amy, we call her, who are helping us. We also have our research officer, Cik Hisham also. So this is in kind of like a nutshell the working bodies, but the ethics committees are different people. So the ethics committee is directly under the vice chancellor, and there are around 21 body members, and the chairperson is our Professor Emeritus, Dr. Raymond Azman Ali, who chair the research ethics committee. So for your information, there are two levels of ethics committee who will be reviewing all ethics proposal and providing approval. If you are the postgraduate or you are staff or you are applicants from outside, so your application will go to UiTM REC, Research Ethics Committee, and we will nominate reviewer from the team to review a proposal. If the proposal is from undergraduate or master by coursework, it will go through ethics review committee. Okay, so there are two entities there. Right. So let's just go through briefly what ethics is, responsibility. So basically, it is not just UiTM who actually are looking at ethics point of view in research. So we actually base our ethical principles, SOPs, and procedures on international regulations. Okay, and there's this. I think you can have a look at the how the story came about. Okay, so basically, what is the role of the Research Ethics Committee or ERC is that we are looking for the ethical conduct for any proposal that involve human participants, right? And the committee is there to approve, reject your proposal, and then we really go through a very stringent ethical processes to look at it, and we have guidelines, term of references that you also can access to from our website For example, we have here Research Ethics Committee and Researchers Guidelines. Yeah. So who needs to apply? Mention everyone who does ethics on human participants, right? And why do you need ethics? Is that because nowadays a lot of publication will request an ethical approval ID before publication. So you will need, even if you feel that your research doesn't need ethics approval, you need to request for an exemption, which you will be subjected to a review process as well, and be given an ID from the ethics committee to say that your study is exempted from ethics approval. So that also needs to go through a process to be granted approval for exemption. So what are the ethical issues as researchers that you must be aware of? So basically, if you want to know what to look at, is that in general, you just have to think about what is the right thing to do for human. Okay, so human in the research means it's for the participants that you are recruiting, what are the right thing to do, and also for you yourself, researchers and co-researchers, all right? So you must do the right thing for the participants from A to Z, yeah, from the beginning until the end of the research. And then you must because any research conducted may impose risks to human. So as a researcher, with the help of your supervisors, it is very important to anticipate what sort of risks that during the research it may be imposed on the participant. Think hard about what are the potential risks, and then identify them. Once you identify the risks, important to come up with the plan of how to minimize the risks that you have thought of. Okay. So when we talk about human ethics, so we are talking just about human. If you are doing research on animal, your research application should go to UITM care, yeah. If you are doing research with regards to biosafety, chemical, then you have to go and apply through the biosafety ethics board, yeah, in UITM. So how do you determine if your research meets ethics approval? So you may first is if it has anything to do with humans, whether directly or indirectly, very likely that you will need an ethics approval. So other things that you can have a look at is looking at the title itself, the objective, what sort of objective that you are trying to answer, what are the key questions, and looking at your methodology of how you collect the data, whether directly from human or using secondary data from database in relation to humans participants. And then along the way, it's very important to think about other ethical problems that you may identify along the way during your research planning on the participants. And other things that you want to build is building trust, yeah, with your participants, being transparent of what you want to do. So these are some, but not all, of a point that you may want to consider when you want to design a proposal to touch on the ethical conduct, right? For example, in the informed consent, it is very important that you design it in such a way that it is very understandable, that for the intended participants, you have all the relevant information displayed to them, so that they are able to agree or disagree to join the study with an informed consent, right? And that is important that your research able to keep the confidentiality and anonymize the patient as good as you can, and then things that you may want to see is that is your research harming at any time? There's a potential to harm the candidate, and the research must be conducted in such a way that the participant, even if they have signed the consent form to be included in the study, that they feel that freely to withdraw from the study at any point of time without being penalized. Okay, so if you look deeper into the methodology, then you may be able to see whether your research needs ethics approval. Okay, we mentioned earlier that anything that involves human, chances is that you will need ethics approval. If you are interviewing participants, doing questionnaire or surveys, yeah, or analysis of human. But through social media, there is guidance that you can have a look. It has its own guiding principles. So we have down here listed some reference that you can have a look at. And these are other methodology ways that you may be questioning yourself whether this is related to human study or not. Okay, if you are encroaching to any of these example of methodology, then chances is you will need ethics approval. So, when we are dealing with human, they are not generic. There are certain vulnerable groups, yep, which requires some detailed planning, yeah, especially if your participants are categorized as patients, so they are vulnerable because they're not well, or children under the age of 17, vulnerable adults. So these are people whom you can say that are vulnerable. For example, I would say that OKU is vulnerable. People with living with HIV are vulnerable people. Uh, disability like physical disability or mentally challenged. So those are vulnerable populations. Or anyone engaged in criminal or illegal activities, so prisoners and things like that. Okay. Or even if you are actually looking at websites into participants related to vulnerable groups. So this is just distributions, people who are vulnerable. So be aware that people who are vulnerable will be scrutinized. You have to really scrutinize how would your research cause harm to these people, and how can you minimize the risk. Okay, and not only you, but the ethics committee also would like to know a little bit more detail of how you're going to conduct and also safeguard participants in your research. So how about exemption from research approval? You can be exempted from ethics, applying for ethics, but you must prove that the data that you are collecting, for example, secondary data, not all can be exempted, but those who are aggregated meaning that data that you pull out from such databases that you're not able to identify them. Identify meaning that you have lost information with regards to name, IC, or hospital number. So anything that linked to individual ownership of data, then that would be aggregated data. So that would be secondary data that can be exempted. Okay. So let's plan. How do you want to apply? So the first thing is that there will be a checklist to know whether we will have a checklist for you to do, and then you will need to submit your application through a RED system. Okay, it is available here, recuitm.edu.my. This is a website, informative website, where you can access and you can have a look at all the guidelines and manual, and it will also lead you to go to RED system. I'll let you know a little bit about the pathway. Okay, and the RED is an online system where you will have to key in all information, and then through the system it will be used by the reviewer to review and be commented on from there, and then you will reply on the reviewer's comment via the system as well. Through the system as well, you will be able to receive your approval letter. So you just have to retrieve it from there. Okay, so as you see here, just to summarize that we have two ethics board. One is the REC looking at the postgraduate by research of mixed mode, and the ERC and application to REC, like you guys, postgraduate will go through RED system. Okay, so RED system is where you guys will be going to. Those who are doing undergraduates or master by coursework will have to do it outside the system through hard copy and email. Okay, so in the ERD system, basically there's no hard copy except if you want to apply for exemption. It's still manually, you have to download the information from the website, the form, and then submit it via email through your faculty for exemption. But others, you will have to go through the system and then you just fill the form online. So this is an example, the front page of where the RED system is. And then if you go to the website, our informative website, you'll be able to see there's a manual system here. Pemohon is for you, the applicants, and you can have a look at it. There'll be very detailed step by step of how to go through it. But I think with your generation, I think you'll be able to sail through without much problem. And then you just use your UITM student email and log in through the system and start your application. So let's go through the flow chart. Your application, if you need an ethics application, basically there are three ways that of category, whether it's minimal risk research, more than minimal risk research, or exemption. So more than minimal risk research would involve those participants who are in the vulnerable group. And minimal risk research minimal risk and doesn't involve the vulnerable groups. Okay, and the minimal risks normally take around 2 months. Give time. Please allocate enough time. Research ethics application does take time. Plan it well ahead of time. Make sure you submit at least 2 months before. Okay, but for more than minimal risk, if your application reviewed by the reviewer found that your application is more than minimal risk, that you need to extend your time, meaning that because you will need to present it online to the board, and the presentation is only happening once a month online, so that would extend it into your timeline. So give it another extra 1 month, yeah, in total 3 months. Yeah, so 2 months, please, for your data collection. Allow an additional 2 months at the time when you apply your ethics before you start your data collection date. Okay, all right. So this is a flow chart if you are submitting from undergraduate, which you are not. So let's go through the form. Form is typically is just like a proposal, but we also kind of like trying to guide you to think about what are the risks that potentially you may cause or how to your participant, and see whether this will lead to either minimal risk or more than minimal risk. Okay, so so as usual, please put in the title, put in the background, problem statement, references. Yep. And you can take what are the methodology, summary of methodology used. In clinical trial, here, kajian intervention, I think clinical trial, unless you have to discuss with your supervisors which methodology best suit your study. Okay. Okay. Further on, okay, what should I summarize here? Okay, here, exclamation mark. So date of research commencement and N is quite long. So research can start at the time when you were thinking about your research. So it can be much earlier on and ends when you have finished your data collection, analyzing, publication. But data collection is something, please pay attention. You can only collect your data after you have received your ethics approval. So since ethics approval takes time, 2 to 3 months, please put your expected date of data collection 2 months at least at the time after you have initiated your data applications. Okay, so you will have your inclusion, exclusion criteria, be very brief but very detailed, so that the viewer can understand your proposal better. Okay, similarly, please put your sample size. Tell us how you come up with your sample size, because we don't want you to recruit any more than you need. Yep, and then please provide us with the summary of your method, summary with the flow chart, so we know your processes. Okay, summary. Okay, right. If you have a grant, please do inform us here, and then let us know if you have any information with regard your co-researchers. So here is basically a form where online where you tick and decide whether it is actually applicable to your research or not. So you must tick. You either tick yes or no. Okay. So it gets you to think a little bit. For example, does any of the data collected have the potential to cause discomfort, embarrassment, psychological harm to participant? No, you say no. If yes, you say yes. If at any point of this rows, you say yes, please describe. For example, maybe here you can say that yes, the questionnaire used is good enough, right, to screen and diagnose anxiety, for example, or depression. So it's risks that your study may identify, meaning that you are responsible to the outcome. So if a patient fill up the questionnaire and assess at risk of getting depression or anxiety, what would the study do to minimize the risks? You can't reverse, right, people from having anxiety to not having. So you can have a plan. For example, patient who score high in anxiety or depression will then be informed that they will be guided to go and see the doctor for further kind of like assessment. Okay, so that must be clear. So how are we going to do that? You may want to inform beforehand to the participant in the patient information sheet that will happen, and if it happened, the chances that you will be referred to the doctors. Okay, and another way is that to make your research safer is that to have someone in the medical background as one of your co-researcher to help monitor this kind of outcome. Okay, so please, each and every row, please give enough information, give enough time for you to digest and think about it together with your supervisor. Okay, and then your proposal will need to be presented first at the department or postgraduate research committee, and let's know whether you have done it or not. Okay, these are just information because we do not have any form for RAC, so I'm using the outside the system form. So the RC doesn't really apply to you, but it is technically similar information being asked also for RC. So make sure you sign, and then the online system will also ask you to fill up a patient information sheet. So you will need to put English and Malay. Whether or not you are not getting any English speaking participant, please fill up the English version because the system will want you to do so. Okay, if you have participants in using a different kind of language like Indian, Cantonese or whatnot, please give us an additional document as an attachment for us to have a look at it. Okay. So this is an example of the patient information sheet. Do you see here how important it is to be very brief but very informational for the participants, because once they read this, they should basically have a total understanding of what they are signing themselves into, and then they will sign here on the right side. On the right side, you don't have to change anything. This is basically good enough for you to maintain for the participant to sign. If the patient is younger than 18, a minor, so you will need to use the SN form. SN form in much smaller, simpler form for the younger participants to understand what they are enrolling themselves from and get their signature here. Of course, for those underage, you will need to get the parental consent as well. Okay, so this is a application form outside the RED system for exemption. So which you can download from the REC UITM website, and then download, submit it to us via email through your faculty. Okay, this is an example of the forms. Okay, just to, once you've done that, then you'll sign, your faculty will sign that they have reviewed, stamp, and then only we start the process. So to let you know what the process is. So this is where the REC is, okay, in the middle of everything. So you may think that, oh, it is very fast. No, actually, because you will have to go through your department, faculty, and then only you start going through with us for reviewing. So we need to review, making sure that to screen your documents are all complete, and then we start the reviewing process. Will take around 1 month or 2 months, but if you have big correction that reviewer wants you to do, so it's up to you how long you're gonna take to do the correction. Okay, so once the reviewer verified, then only get approval letter. Okay. Similarly, just to show you where the ethics is, we are squashed in the middle here. We're trying to make decision fast, but first of all, you will have to go through the pre and post procedure as well. So let's recap. If you are a postgraduate, you are applying through the online RED system. Okay. Okay. Decision, I think we have discussed about it. The decision, if your proposal is really good, right, the reviewer would say accept. Okay, if not, there may be some improvement that the reviewer would want. So you may got a conditional approval, whether you may need to do some minor amendment there, where they will give a month for you to redo. But if you can do it within a day, please do so. And then, or if you're major, we give you up to 3 months, okay, to do the revision. And please do submit it earlier or within the timeline, or else you will have to resubmit again your proposal. Some of more than minimum risk were presented in the REC meeting may not be too clear to what they are presenting, so some may ended up having to represent again. Not many, very rare, but some study is just not ethical to be done. For example, the data has already started to be collected, so it's not going to be approved. Okay, so this is just an example of expedited reviews, research that is minimal risks. You will need to present if your research is more than minimal risks, and you will be exempted if you are doing secondary data and so on. Okay, in summary, make sure your application is complete. Do discuss with your supervisors about your processes, methodology. Look at the risk that your potential proposal research may cause to participants, and how are you going to overcome it, minimize it. Okay, submit it early. Give time, at least 3 months, I would say. And if you have received the reviewer's comment, please reply to it as soon as you can, so that reviewer can still fresh in their mind to know what to expect, and they can review it very fast, yeah, because they still remember. Okay. remember, incomplete application at the screening will be rejected, and then you will have to add more time to that. Okay, so this is just the theme. Thank you very much. I would like to end my session here, and I would take any questions from the floor.
Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for your brief explanation. I have a question. If I work in my country, I am from not here, you know, I am from Iraq. If I work in my country and I have a part in Iraq and part here,
Okay.
the part that I work in Iraq, I already make an ethics in the institute that I work with, another university, and the second part I will be here in UIT. Did I need another ethics letter other than that I worked within in Iraq? Another ethics from the college when I work here. Thank you.
Okay. So technically, if I got you right, you have two sites for data collection, right? One in Iraq and one in Malaysia. And the one in Iraq is that you have already received your ethics approval from your board in Iraq.
Yes.
Okay. So because you are UITM candidates, you're registered with us, you will need to submit both proposal study conducted both in Iraq, even though you already have your ethics approval in Iraq, again, to get approval from UITM. So you can submit your approval letter, ethics from Iraq, together as an attachment when you submit through the RED system for that particular research. So the research that you are doing in Malaysia, well, if it is a different research altogether, then you will need to submit a different proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I will go on there's an online question here. Doctor, is it possible to request ethics maximum possible PhD for 14 semester? Okay, the length of the study approval depend pretty much on how long you will need to collect the data for, not how long your semester is. So if in the proposal you said that you anticipate that you're going to be collecting the data and then do a post-collection monitoring to continue to collect the data, and that timeline must be in tandem with your objective. Okay, then we will give as long as you want. There are some study that run over 2-3 years, and then we still give the ethics approval till in accordance to the methodology. So the length of the time must correspond to the objective of the study. Okay, if at any time you say that, okay, but my study PhD is much longer. So if the ethics approval has end, right, you get for, because your data collection is for 2 years, and then you got for 2 years, but at some point of time you say, oh, I need to extend. There is extension of ethics approval, which you will need to submit to us at least 3 months before the end of that 2 years to us to request for extension. That shouldn't be a problem. Just give an explanation why you need to extend, you know. So that would be a way to do to be aware how long your ethics approval has been given time for, and apply for extension at least 3 months before it ends. The forms you showed previously, could I download it all? Yes, you can download it through the website. I'll share the slide with the committee later, and then you can go to the website, and then all forms are available. But for REC application online RED, you do not need a hard copy form. You do not need any form. You just do it online. Okay. The next question is, if we have research grant from other institute, do we still need request ethics approval from ISIS for data collection? That's right. If you have a research ethics grant from other institute, you will still need to get an ethics approval from your UiTM, because one is that you are an UiTM candidate. Second is that regardless whether you are a UiTM candidate or you're from outside candidate or from outside university, if data is to be collected within the UiTM vicinity using the staff, students, you will still need ethics approval from that, from UiTM, yeah. Okay, because I know some grants, they also look at, there is a committee to look at the grant, but they do not have an ethics committee to review the proposal in a, I know, looking at ethical concerns. Yeah, you still need the ethics approval. Do we need to request ethics approval from UiTM even though all the lab works and data collection is done in other institution? That is right. Because you are registered under UiTM, right? So you also will have to apply for ethics approval with UiTM on data that is being conducted elsewhere. So I'm sure you will already have ethics approval from other institutions to run and conduct the research. You can apply to UiTM and then please submit the approval ethics approval form together as an attachment in the RED for the reviewer to have a look. So you still need. So basically, you will have two ethics approval letter, one from the institution and one from UiTM, just because you are registered with us. Okay. Because we also look at your safety, we don't just look at participants' risks. The reviewer also will look at the researchers' safety and well-being. Okay, there's one question here. Assalamualaikum. I would like to ask if I'm interested for exchange student master, can I apply it during first semester too? From my understanding, final semester are not eligible to apply. Not quite understand what this mean. Final semester student are not eligible to apply. I'm not sure why are you not eligible, but ethics approval basically is important that you do it early. If you can anticipate what you want to do already, plan it out, you should be able to start early as long as your proposal has been reviewed at your faculty or at your colleges and be endorsed by them, because we process a proposal that has been endorsed by a faculty. So as long as it's been done and endorsed, yes, please do submit to us, because that is even better because you are preparing for it much earlier. What is the main purpose behind all these ethical things? I meant like those collecting survey from industry people that didn't revolve around the people that you mentioned in your early criteria, like feel vulnerable. Okay, if you are doing any research in relation to human, it will have to go through the ethical board to look at your proposal so that the ethics board can assess that your proposal is fine and safe ethically for human, because this is basically the regulations, right? Ethics regulation, that we are looking after the well-being of humans. So we want to make sure that any research that is subjected to human done in the appropriate manner and safe. So if still as a researcher we think, oh, this is nothing much, it's just a questionnaire. But no, really, when the board are looking at it, they do look at even how long the participant will need to fill up the questionnaire, right? And then are there any sensitive questions that we ask, for example, that sexuality, like, other sensitive question that may be at risks of exposing patients and risk concern with regards to data safety and also privacy. Okay. So not necessarily ill and vulnerable, even normal population also will need ethics approval. So there's a question from Muaz Amini. If the research more of observation analysis, it still need the ethics. If it is, if you are observing human, yes, it still need ethics approval. If you are actually looking at secondary data, meaning that you are extracting data from a database and you are extracting data that has no identifiable information, your research may qualify for exemption, so you can apply for exemption, but you still have to go through the ethics board because it is involving human data, although not directly. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Afika has a question. Yeah. My research related to waste from animal, does it require ethical approval? Yes. If you're dealing with animal, so this one I'm not sure whether you are handling animal, but animal itself has a UITM care ethics board. So you will need to submit that still through your faculty and then submit it to the UITM care. But if the byproduct is some sort of chemical, then it will be biosafety. But I think this one is more towards UITM care, dealing with animals. So animal also have its own ethical committee. What are the key ethical consideration I should address in my thesis? Okay, if it's related to human, think about in what way that your study may harm the participants and how can you minimize the risks. Okay, so if you're not sure, I think you will need to discuss with your supervisor, especially looking at your methodology. Looking at your methodology, how you can optimize your patient information sheet. Okay, hope that helps. And then there's this question here, is there any precedent or past cases where researcher or UITM being sued for breaching ethical conduct by outside party? If there is, that who is responsible? Will UITM indirectly in some way also responsible at the end of the day? Who is liable for this? Okay. Liability of something goes wrong, right? Okay. Ethics approval that is given, I think, this has never been, I have not, in this 6 months I'm with the ethics, I have not been made known of past cases where researcher or UiTM being sued for breaching ethical conduct. Okay, ethical conduct, if being breached, it boils down to the principal investigator. Okay, so ethical conduct, misconduct varies, right? It involves management of grant money, deviation of protocol, not following the methodology stated in the proposal. So any misconduct in the trial, it will boils down to the researcher. Okay, the ethics will most likely not have any implication because we look at your proposal, and then the reviewer will look at what's on paper and give approval based on what you plan to do. But how it translates in real life, the responsibility goes back to the researcher. So it's very important to monitor your research and make sure that it follow the intended methodology plan before that.
Doctor, I just want to ask one questions. Okay, let's say we have already the ethic has already approved our questionnaires and we run the pilot test for reliability, and then when the reliability test result came out, it turns out it's not going to be good result as we expected, and we need to actually you know change and make amendments to the questionnaires here and there. Should we after we do the amendment and all that, should we go through the ethical approval again, or we can just proceed to the actual study?
So meaning that you already have initial ethics approval?
Yeah, because in order for us to go for the pilot test, we have to go for the ethical approval first, right? And then if there is an amendment made in the questionnaires, maybe it's considered like minor or major correction have been made. So should we go to apply again for the ethical approval, or we can just collect the data?
Okay, it depends on what your study objective is actually. If your study objective is to, if your study objective in your pilot hasn't changed at all after you have done your pilot, meaning you will need to do some modification to the questionnaire, but the objective of that questionnaire remain the same, meaning you are still looking at the same things, but it's just a modified questionnaire. As long as the first ethics approval were made known that following the pilot, these are the things that we will do the questionnaire, and these are the changes if need be. And then if there are changes, then we will resurvey again to this number of participants. Then you do not need to submit a new proposal for ethics approval. But if the pilot ethical approval was just meant for the pilot, but there is no additional recruitment mentioned in the methodology that you will do post pilot questionnaire, so you will need to send for new ethics approval because your objective now has been expanded and it wasn't included in the initial ethics approval. Did I explain that? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, doctor.
Okay, yeah, hope that helps. Just look back at your study methodology, whether what you want to do after post-pilot too has already been stated in your pilot.
Okay, doctor. Thank you so much.
Welcome. We have one question from Miss Osman. I had done a preliminary research to find research gap. It was a small research, but still involves small number of participants. But That was when I was with previous two university. Okay, never mind. 2 years ago. Then I got discontinued now. So now I am with UiTM. So do I need to redo everything again, or can I just report the previous study since it was already been published in journal? Uh, okay. As long if your previous research done in the previous university 2 years ago has received because you already collected the data, right? So you must use the previous ethics approval for publication. If you haven't got the research approval from the study done and collected before, and want to apply for approval for a retrospect for data collected in the past, unfortunately it will not be granted. Okay, so you can report your study based on your previous ethics approval. Okay. So Declaration of Helsinki, someone stated this 1964. I think that's when it was actually it's a rentetan, a follow up following World War II and so on and so forth, where they decided that there must be an ethical review for any research conducted on human, because as we are aware, during the World War, there were a lot of unregulated, unethical research done, especially on prisoners and so on. Yeah. Okay. Any more question maybe from the admin? I think we have other speakers, right? I try not to include into Prof Yong's time. I think you probably have some idea what ethics application involve, what it is, and if you have any question, please you can just contact the secretariat through the email or call us. Yeah, but most importantly, just do discuss with your supervisor early on during the proposal space. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing. May I know
Yes,
Nazila?
doctor. Yes, doctor. Are you done?
So yeah, I am done. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Khasnur.
Welcome.
And then next, we will continue with Dr. Associate Professor Dr. Yong Sun Kong.
Hi, Prof Yong, former boss.
So long time no see. Anyway, I was with Dr. Hasno as a colleague in RMC before, but so I'm no longer with RMC. So here I am, still continuing what I did before.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. All right. So I'm taking over, Dr.
Yeah.
Hasno.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Okay, very good afternoon, everyone. So like I said, I was with RMC. So this session was supposed to be taken over by the new head of ethics and publication, but however, due to some avoidable issues, so I have to come in. But it's okay. I have been giving this talk for the past 2 years, so no issue for me. And so I hope you will going to like still have the energy to pay attention to what I have to say. Anyway, before I start, let me share the PowerPoint slide. So just a check, are you looking at my PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
All right. So thank
Yes,
you very
Doctor.
much. Now, all right. So without further ado, I will start talking about the next part related to ethics, and this time it's about publication. Well, Dr. Project related research and also its ethics application. My talk will completely cover the entire story specifically on publication. Now, I was wondering, um, perhaps this time you are just at the beginning of your postgraduate candidature, and publication probably is not your focus, but trust me, you should mind what you need to do in order to accelerate your publication the soonest possible. Okay? So inside my talk, I'm going to cover why you should do that and what will happen if you don't. Okay. And a lot of those people who are desperate to meet those key performance indicator, they felt desperate and do the wrong thing. So today we're going to go through the examples of those misconduct, particularly in academic publication, and how you should avoid it. Yeah. So there you go. A little bit intro what I have to say. So these are the content, the outline of contents that I'm going to cover. So that will cover a few small parts of the examples of academic misconduct. It doesn't cover the entire thing just yet. Now I'm going to cover those that are most commonly heard, at least from my experience as a previously an administrator with the Research Management Center, and my own experience being a supervisor for final year project students as well as postgraduate students. So trust me, whatever the tricks that gets previously the previous student over the hump, now we are in the know. So these are the things that you should know as well, and again, avoid it. So first thing first, when you first registered with UITM as a research student in postgraduate level, you will definitely going to get yourself inside this cycle. Well, anybody who do research cannot avoid this cycle, and they consist of several stages, as you can see right here. There are 5 of them. It begins with how you develop your own research problem. And most of the time, this is where you develop your proposal, where the key idea is whether or not your research question or research problem is scientific enough or worthy enough to be continued as a postgraduate research. So once you have gone through different research proposal, and of course, for those who are for those who applied, the human subjects or animal subjects, you need to definitely first get the research ethics approval before you begin conducting your research and collecting data. So there you go, stage number 2. But then again, once you have finished your finding, this is a part where you need to possibly process your data, whether or not it is a good enough data to be used. If not, you have to come back to stage number 2 to keep on collecting enough quality data before you come up to this part where this is documentation and publication. This is essentially where you need to publish manuscripts that you will publish in a proceedings at least, or maybe in a journal preferably. And of course, once you have all those papers that are verified by experts, then only you submit your thesis for oral examination. And that caps the entire research journey of yourself as a research student. And this cycle is very much the same myself as a researcher. So we go through everything, and mind you, once we have disseminate, that means once we have published paper somewhere else and people reading it, doesn't mean that it stops there. Sometimes mistake may happen, and we also need to correct it by issuing or publishing corrigendum or addendum. Yeah. So these are the points that I will need to add some more. Okay, now the main point of this cycle is that your research only stops or ends, only completed when you successfully publish your article, either in proceeding or in journal. You see, some people might argue, what if I just publish in thesis? Does that marks the end of your research? The answer is yes and no, depending on which institution that you're registered. Now, you are definitely registered with UiTM, and according to regulation of UiTM, you must publish paper. For master student, at least one. PhD student, if not mistaken, 2 or 3. I'm not sure whether they have increased it to 3, because if not mistaken, currently it's just 2. Okay, so you must first publish, otherwise you are not allowed to go and submit your thesis. So why this is important? Now don't blame UiTM for such policy, because why? There's a reason to do that. Because why? Once your article has been published, that means your article has been verified by the scientific committee. So that is why. So there is a certain what do you say, validity in your research that allows it to be acknowledged by the expert in your field. Then only your article can be accepted for publication. So that is a seal of approval from the scientific committee. And that is very important, yeah. Only after that, then you are accepted into the circle, the scientific committee, yeah. Okay, now the third point, the quality of the journal is guaranteed through a strict peer review process and efficient management in accordance to standards as outlined by Committee on Publication Ethics. Now, when I say peer review, perhaps you haven't heard what is that. Now, peer, as we know, is people who works alongside with us. Like you, student, your peer is probably your fellow PhD student. But the peer that we're talking about here is researcher. And just now I told you, your papers have to be first published. But before it is published, it will be verified. That verification process is what we call here the peer review process. And who are those peers? Experts in the international level or national level that will go through the content of your research to verify the scientific merit of your paper. So you see, this is how it works, and it will continue works like this one. And being a research student, you have to get ready for this process. Yeah. Okay, now we do have some standards in terms of research ethics and also publication ethics. I'm not sure if Dr. Khasnur have mentioned this to you before, because this is a manual we call Malaysian Code of Conduct for Responsible, Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research, or in short, we call it MCRCR. Now, we already have the second revision, second version, second edition of this publication, and they are actually issued by the top scientists in Malaysia, Academy Science Malaysia. They are the one who comes up with this one. Gone through series of discussion among all scientists in Malaysia. So this guideline is in line with international standard, and they are made for Malaysian scientists. Yeah. So if you're not from here, then I strongly suggest you to download a copy, which is available for free from Academy Science Malaysia's website. Yeah? So you have to have a copy. Inside there, they will teach you the principles of research ethics and also what would happen. Yeah, what will happen if anything goes wrong, if there's a misconduct, what will happen. And for your information, UiTM adopts this one. So a lot of the processes that is described in this booklet also is practiced by UiTM as well. Yeah. And to be more specific, when you go to international level, you're going to submit to high impact journals, international stage journals. Now they are consist of many publishers And all these publishers, I'm quite confident to say that all international publishers refer to this body. We call it Committee on Publication Ethics with regards to best practices, what are the current standards, and also acceptance, and also whatever the misconduct that may happen in the world of academic publication. All they follow rules or guidelines set by this committee. Yeah. So it is based in UK. It is non-profit, but it is not exactly non-profit because I have a membership there, and they charge me 300 ringgit per year to renew it, which I don't think that is worth it. But trust me, you must like see what's going on inside there, because most of the international standard as adopted by many publisher, they follow their standard, so you cannot deny that. So you have the standards. If you have time, you read it, but if you don't, always look at the publisher's guideline. Yeah. Now, what about within us? I mean, in UITM. Now, we do have a lot of policies that governs and also handles some issues related to publication ethics. And for the past 10, 20 years, I don't think this issue is new to you. It has been around for many, many years. We call it plagiarism. And UITM actually first combat this kind of academic misconduct beginning in 2012. And just last year, they have published a second version, a revision to that, to cover the loopholes as the first version did not cover, wide enough. So this time, they published a second edition. Now, it is not the time for this talk, this guideline. I strongly recommend you to download a copy and take your own time to read it yourself. The policy as adopted by UITM with regards to plagiarism. Okay. Now, I have to first apologize to those who don't speak Malay. If you can't speak Malay, you can let your supervisor know and ask your supervisor to interpret for you. Because if not mistaken, until now, there's only Malay version available. So if you're not so sure about the content of this one, download a copy, see your supervisor, and ask your supervisor to interpret for you. All right. So what is research ethics? Now, it is described as what is a norm, the right value or the wrong, the good or bad, or what ought and ought not to be done in the context of research. So what does that mean? Yeah, you might ask, what does that mean? Well, it simply means that this is the norm or the rules adopted by researcher, us, with regards to the conduct in research. So that means that these rules that we determine today may not be the same 10 years after. Now, this is very true because with the development of new technology, some norms are not acceptable before can be accepted in the future, and these norms may change. So that is why you have to keep up with the latest development, particularly for those of you who knows what is artificial intelligence. We do have a lot of tools that help us to write and publish, but there are rules that are being developed here. So that is why we need to get to the front and know what can be accepted or not. Yeah. Okay, now the part why you should know this is because sometimes the punishment can be very harsh if you accidentally or purposely violates this rule, depending on which university that you come from and also country. Some countries, they punish severely, some to the point that they can charge you in the court for criminal offenses. Well, more on that, we're going to dwell more on that one based on the examples that I'm going to show you later. Yeah. So that is the reason why we need to know about research ethics and also particularly publication ethics. So there is a website that I strongly recommend you to check later on, which is called Retraction Watch. Now, this is a website that compiles the latest development or the latest news, particularly with regards to research ethics violation. So you can say this website is almost like a page that a lot of people who done the wrong things are compiled. So yeah, and unfortunately, there are a few cases that involve Malaysians inside there. So yeah, you might want to have a look inside there just to check what are the do's and don'ts. You are going to learn a lot. Or you can just pay attention to what I have to say next to know the major things. Because inside this slide, I have used materials and also the information that are compiled from Retraction Watch. Although there are also many more, but due to time constraint, I only compile the most important ones. So before I go to those examples, here are some statistics, some data that has been reported in journal papers. Yeah, the misconduct in research and scholarly publication. So here you can see two graphs on my left-hand side showing the ever-increasing number of academic violation. I mean, this is specifically for publication. And also down there, the statistics or the numbers of papers retracted due to this misconduct. You see why papers are retracted? Very simple. If a paper integrity can be questioned, that means the accuracy of data may also be doubtful. And because of that, this paper usually, the practice of publishers, international publishers, they would usually retract it because there are doubts in the reports that we have published in their journal. They'll just take it away. And it is ever increased. Now you might ask, why? Why everything starts from year 2000? You see, during year 2000, that was the first time where the citation metrics were introduced. That time, there's only one. We call it ISI. But today is called Web of Science. Sounds familiar? That is it. Because before Web of Science of today, it was known as ISI. That was created in the year 2000. And since then, everybody wants to be recognized and acknowledged in ISI. So they publish as many papers as possible. There you go. People are desperate and use a lot of methods. Some are legal, some are not. And these are the examples that are not legal ones. And you can see that the examples of this misconduct can be plagiarism, as I shown you earlier, duplicate publication. If you don't know, don't worry. I'll show you later on. Until some that are outright academic fraud. So why this has been increasing? Now that is because we as researcher, especially, I mean, let's talk about graduate student like you. You will need to first publish before you're allowed to submit your thesis, and only after you pass your thesis examination, then only you can graduate. Some, especially us academic staff, when we take time to study, we are given exactly 3 years. No more, less can, but no more. You cannot do more because more means more money have to be invested on us. So as far as I know, any academic staff who take more time will be punished financially. See, pressure, isn't it? But that also applies to me myself because we were given some annual number of publication that we have to meet. We have to publish a certain number of papers. If we fail to meet it, that also may impact our annual assessment. So again, pressure. And because of this ever-growing pressure to publish in academic papers, we have some urge to sometimes become too desperate and may have resorted to unlawful ways to achieve that out of desperation. Now, it also could be greed. Now, people previously, 10 years ago, some countries which are well enough, they offer financial incentive. Like if we can publish in a high impact journal, last time it was paid 1,000. I'm not sure ringgit or USD. 1,000 per paper published. That is a lot of money. That was the time when people are rushing to get high impact journals to increase their ranking. So again, people might think, that is an easy way to get money. Why not? Well, sometimes it is legal, then sometimes it is not. So that is an issue there. Yeah? And also the lack of moral capacity. Now, people may not be educated enough to know that is wrong. What we call this an honest mistake. So in order to reduce that probability, that is why we're here today. We're going to learn examples and you don't repeat the same mistake. Okay. So here are the examples that I am going to show you all. Oops. Now, beginning from the top, those are what we can say the academic misconduct or publication misconduct that has the least severity down to the bottom. The bottom ones are the worst. Why is the worst? You're going to notice that when you're going down, you're going to notice that going down, there is an increased intent to cheat. So you see the intention. The intention to cheat is much more significant when you go down this arrow. And so there you go. These are examples. And also the punishment also may be quite different depending on institution. As far as I know, for plagiarism, if it is the intention is not proven, they might give you a warning. However, if there's a proven intention that you intend to cheat or to mislead the examiners or supervisor, the punishment can be more severe. Now that we talk about this example, I'm going to start with the first example. So we go back to plagiarism because why? This has been like a decade-long battle between UiTM and also this issue. Okay, so according to Turnitin, which is a software first developed to detect plagiarism in students' work, they list down 9 examples. So let me show you all of it. Now, from the top, the word that has been used many times, copy and paste. So this is what we used before we have the proper word of plagiarism. Now, this is as if like you have the source from a literature, internet. Yeah, those texts you copy and paste exactly word by word, sentence by sentence in your own work and submit as it is. That automatically is a plagiarism. Now, you might be asking, what if you put the citation? You are still guilty. If you put citation, even if you copy word by word, even if you put a citation, that is still a wrong thing. Because it shows the lack of effort to give your own originality. Words that you use in describing your idea can be coming from yourself. But some students, due to, again, desperation, because of time constraint, they copy and paste, and that's it. It is still wrong, even though you cite it. Now, when you come down to the second one, creativity seeps in. Now, some students who are creative enough, they may mix with several sources. The sentence, they can be different, but they still copy word by word from several sources, mix them together, and there you go. You might get away, but wrong. Turnitin still can detect it, and it will still being picked up. And then the most expert student may be able to get away with this one, in which they call it almost not plagiarizing. As you can see, example, changing the keywords, the phrases, but retain the essential content of the source. You see, there's a word for that word. We call rogeting. And there are 2 possibilities. Either you can get away sketch-free, your supervisor don't notice anything, or number 2, your supervisor might call you in and give you the worst lashing of your life. But that happens to me. Students use synonym in word, change every single keyword until that student also don't know what they are writing, but yet they send it to me. So yeah, that happens. Well, that is the worst of this type. Well, moving on, the second one, include proper citation to source, but paper contains almost no original work. You see, you still cite the paper, you still use your own word, but the idea are still coming from the source. Where is your idea? See, that distinguish between the students that are worthy of graduating because they are creativity and also originality. Some people might get away with that one because they use your own sentence, right? Yes, you can. But when it comes to Viva, you might stuck. Okay, last one. Includes proper citation but relies too closely on the text original wording or structure. Now this one, again, you can still cite, you can get away with it. You use your own word, again, you can get away with it because Turnitin can't pick up if you use your original sentence to describe. And again, still lack of original idea. So there you go. Plagiarism. There are so many types of plagiarism. Some plagiarize word by word, as word. Some plagiarize the entire structure of the sentence. Now, what makes this possible is there are many tools nowadays. So I'm going to name one, which you possibly already know, and the name is Quillbot. I don't say that I am against the usage of Quillbot, but you see, Quillbot is here to assist you in writing. If English is not your first language, by all means, use it. Use it, but improve the way you present in English. But most importantly, don't rely so much on Quillbot because Quillbot has been proven to be not exactly perfect. There are students of myself who use Quillbot, and what they've written is not what they meant. Quillbot is a tool to help you. So you will still need to check what they have suggested in their text. So don't trust entirely on AI. They might be wrong. Yeah. So the same goes to ChatGPT. If you want to use ChatGPT to write, so be it. Can. There's nothing wrong with it. But check the validity. Yeah. Okay, so there are a lot of examples of Turnitin. Now the case of plagiarism. This one happens in 2014. Yeah, exactly 20 years before. And I'm still using it because that is the only time where it get caught. And this is quite serious. Now in 2014, there is a website here called Swara TV. They report a news talking about a very prominent academician. During that time, he is not very in line with, on the same page with the government at that time. So a lot of critical comments coming for this academician, which is what it should be. However, in that year, somebody reported that his thesis that he has published 10 years before turns back when they check using Turnitin, he plagiarized one chapter. So that's it. A professor plagiarizing a work that he committed this misconduct 10 years before. So what happened is that Turnitin only invented in 2012. It's only launched in 2012. So this misconduct happens way before that. And what happened is during the launch of that technology, they managed to pick up all the wrongdoings that people previously have done. And unfortunately, this person just recently promoted in 2014 to a professor post was forced to retire because of this one. I mean, Malaysian government are so nice because if this happened in overseas, the punishment is not just early retirement. Yeah. So what about in UiTM? Now, in UiTM, we also have conducted a research talking about plagiarism in which half of UiTM students admitted to have plagiarized. They know they plagiarized, but this happened like 14 years ago. And I believe today the numbers are, I don't know, maybe around this one. But here's the point. Now, plagiarism is nothing new because it's so easy to do. Yeah, you just copy and you paste it in your work. Sometimes your supervisor doesn't even know that you plagiarize if you're smart enough on how to play around with it, with tools, of course. And that is why UiTM was forced to subscribe to Turnitin. Now, last time, exactly 1 year before, we don't have Turnitin, but now we have it back. So students, if you don't know how to use Turnitin, make sure you know. Definitely your supervisor will ask you to use that and check it. So what is the policy with regards to this one? Now, of course, IPSIS have already told you very, very early, if you want to submit anything, drafts, proposal for DRP or draft thesis where you need to go through oral examination, it must first get checked by Turnitin for similarity index. And currently, the number of the value of similarity index must be below 30%. Now, this one excluding the references. Now, if you ask me if 30% is low enough? I would say not low enough. It should be much lower. Because 30% I've seen, you can still do a lot of like plagiarism from the source. Now, what if you are caught? What if you're caught? Yeah. So these are the examples of punishment that can be given by UiTM, either a failed grade, an F given to a course. Well, this is if the course have an assignment, but I think for postgraduate students, you don't have it. You only come to the test when you need to submit a manuscript. So this is between you and also the publisher, the editor of the journal. And what's worse is if this one still happens and get caught, but of course, it is not as easy as they give you punishment just like that. You will first need to be proven guilty in a court, and then the chairperson of the jawatan kuasa of the committee will going to propose a punishment. And these are the potential punishment that can be given to you, yeah? So there is a reference, and again, like I told you earlier, it's only available in Malay. So if you're not able to understand Malay, again, get your supervisor to discuss with you, yeah, the content. You must know the content and the latest policy, yeah. And this is a link. If you want to search the internet, search Dasar Plagiarisme UiTM dan Pelaksanaannya. It's in second version, just published last year. So you need to go through that. Okay, next one. Examples of academic misconduct. And I would say, apart from plagiarism, these two are quite common. These two are quite common. But these two academic misconduct can be said much, much worse than plagiarism. While the word itself is copied and pasted, what worse can you do? You're stealing other people's sentences, ideas. Well, to me, the damage is there, but not as severe as this one. Because in fabrication and falsification, there's an element of fraud, and that hurts a lot more than you ever think. So here is the example. Fabrication. The word itself tells you that it is made up. Fabricate means making something. And this is making the data up. Now, experiments, sometimes people might report some data. Now, whether or not that data truly collected through an experiments, that is very important that we know it is the case. Because if that is made up, we never know the accuracy or the validity of the data. And fabrication is one that is made up without conducting any experiment. And you see, this is going to hurt a lot more on the scientific community because based on a fraudulent report, it may mislead the direction of a research. And a lot of time and money may be wasted due to this misconduct. Now, the next example is falsification. Now, this one is very similar, but just slightly different in a way that the experiment has been conducted. However, some point, the data doesn't look so nice. So you edit it, or you remove one data point so that the curve looks smoother. Or if the images doesn't look the way that you wanted, so you use Photoshop and you change the shape into what you would expect. And these things has been happening a lot of time, 10 years ago. So there you go. You conduct an experiment, but you change it a little bit. Of course, with falsification, we call it. So these are the example that has happened in Malaysia in 2016, and these images, perhaps you have seen it before. These are the images, the so-called data coming from a stem cell research. In 2016, stem cell research can be said the forefront of biological research. Everybody wants to publish paper. Somehow, this publication comes out too quick, too good to be true. And when you look at it, it is. Because when you look at the right-hand side, the circles with similar color, they're actually from a template, the same images that they are flipped around, they turn. It's actually the same. and so does the other color that are circled. They are actually the same template of images. And they are like blatantly Photoshop in order to make it real. And then on the left-hand side, these are actually identical images from top to bottom. They are just edited just slightly. And what happened is that they got caught. This is the work of a PhD candidate who just graduated when this misconduct was first reported online. So he was confronted and sure enough, gone missing, gone back to his country and never respond to any question or allegation. So this student's PhD has been revoked by that university, and he doesn't have a PhD after 3 years. Yeah, he got it first, but then revoked lah. But the worst part is that his supervisor doesn't know his wrongdoing and got investigated. And well, they say that they are not in the know. Well, because of this debacle, that university suffered the loss in terms of reputation. And frankly speaking, in research, reputation is a lot of things. Yeah. So that university suffered reputation loss because of that. And it's still the talk until today. Well, at least for this talk. So how do we counter fabrication and falsification? Now, intentional fabrication can be difficult because sometimes you don't know whether that data is true or not until you repeat yourself. That is why when you submit a manuscript for journal publication, editors might request you to repeat the experiment. They ask you. But some journals, the editor, they are very capable. They repeat the experiment according to what you have described in your manuscript. So they want to see whether they get the same data or not. If they don't get the same data, then they're going to confront you. Okay. So this is how we know how fabrication is detected. So supervisor may check and do the experiment at another time to get the same data to verify. And also they might check your data regularly to see where does your data comes from? Where does your data comes from in the graph? Does it comes from a raw data that is generated from a computer, or you just like write down? You see, writing down data also can be accepted. And if I'm the one who's going to check the student's data, I'm going to ask the student to regularly show me the logbook where they write down the raw data from any experiment. Because once this is recorded, there's no way they can change it. Yeah, so logbook, very important. Okay, then students should submit a manuscript as early after passing a defense research proposal, because why this happened to students is that they are desperate. We know because they want to graduate on time and they graduate early, and things may get out of hand. So for students like you, if you really need that one paper to get you the opportunity for viva or oral examination, my suggestion to you is that as soon as you finish your defense research proposal, make it as a review manuscript and submit it. It doesn't take too long. Maybe 1 year, you're going to have your first paper. And then the second paper from your experiment, there you go, 2 papers, and you don't need to cheat. So, okay, now this one, the third one, misconduct number 3, gift and ghost authorship. So how I know this one earlier, when I did my PhD, I also don't know. When I come back to Malaysia, then I know there's such a thing. Now, what is this authorship? First of all, there are 2 types of authorship. First author or corresponding author. Why I put it higher? Later on that. And also other authors, we call it co-authors. Now, the first author usually have the highest weightage in terms of recognition, because the first author usually are the one who done the work firsthand, and most likely also the first person to draft out this manuscript. In other words, you as the person who need to do the actual lab work and submit a report to your supervisor. So what about corresponding author? Now, corresponding author, usually the role of corresponding author is to communicate with editors during the submission process, and any feedbacks from the scientific community will comes to the corresponding author. And when you look at the weightage and also the responsibility of this author, automatically that falls to your own supervisor, the head of project, we call it. You are the worker, the supervisor is the head of project, and he or she should know from, from the beginning until the end, the entire process in that project. So here's the distinction. If you wants to have the first author, definitely. But if your supervisor doesn't allow you to become a first author, you have every right to question why. Now, for example, if you haven't contributed enough, that might be a justification. But by default, all students, the students who directly involved in their project should be the first author. That is the right, and you should demand that. Now, the question is, some students, they might be academician. They're already a staff from their own university and they want to pursue PhD. Can they become a corresponding author? The answer is yes, of course. Because after all, you're going to continue with this same research for a foreseeable future, of course. Now, whether or not you can have two corresponding author depends on a journal. Some journal allows it, some does not, but I'm all for it. Because why? Nobody knows everything. If your supervisor and yourself want to become a corresponding author, frankly speaking, I agree with that one, but you have to negotiate first with your supervisor and also get the approval from the journal editor. I think nowadays many journal editors allows it. Okay, now what about co-authors? Co-authors are those that contribute part of that manuscript and they knows and they contribute intellectually to any parts of that manuscript, like it for data analysis, interpretation, or some even the writing of that manuscript also can be counted as part of the co-authorship. So there you go. Reviewing and significant contribution in the intellectual part allows them to become a co-author. So there you go. Now, co-author should also know the content of other parts of that same manuscript, because they have to also verify and agree the outcome of experimentals that are conducted, that are contributed by other co-authors, and they are also responsible for those data as well. So here's the problem. We call it gift authorship. And how this happened? It's as if like authorship itself is a material, an object that you present it to somebody else as a tribute or maybe as a favor. You see, all these things seems like there's no victim, you see? Macam tak ada victim kan? But I would say the victim is integrity. Because why? You are rewarding someone that are not deserving. So don't. If somebody doesn't contribute enough, you don't simply give away authorship because that person just don't deserve it. So this is you. This is between you and also the authors of your paper. This may happen to you yourself, or this may happen to your supervisor. And there are also a lot of reports coming from other universities saying that the students complain. The students actually complain. Why that paper that he go through a lot of difficulties to make that draft suddenly appear two names that he doesn't recognize? Yes, that may happen. How it happened, it has a lot to do with the supervisor. So that is not right, actually. That is not right. Although there is probably no further action taken, but there you go, yeah. Integrity. Yeah. Okay, now this is a actual screen capture that I got from an email that is sent to me. And inside the email, they have a team. They call it a Vistina team. They claim that they work with a lot of scholars in the world. And they have a lot of manuscript waiting for us to join. Well, the word sounded very legit, but then it is not when they start asking for money. See the issue? You want to contribute, but they say, no, it's different. It is done. It's almost done. You just have to pay money, and then you have your name on the paper. That is not right. Yeah, that is not right. That is almost like you're buying your authorship. So this thing has been around. I know it because I got one invitation. So if you got one, I know it could be easy for you, but you will never know what you're paying. Perhaps this is a scam. Once you pay, they disappear. So yeah, not worth it, right? And one more thing, even if they disappear and you want to complain, chances are you won't because you are in the wrong in the first place. So they took your money and you have nowhere to complain. Can see what's worse? That there you go. Okay, now ghost authorship is an individual who paid to write but is not listed as an author. So contrary to the other one, you paid to get your name on it, but this person just want your money and they write for you. Yeah, there is such service we call ghost authorship. And previously, many cases that I've heard got away with this one. They paid somebody to write the thesis. But nowadays, it is almost impossible to do that. Because why? In Malaysia, we have oral examination. People who get other people to write their own thesis will never understand their content, the content of the thesis. So they will get caught in oral examination. Now, why this is also um, not ethical is that there's an element of cheating right here. You are not the one who is contributing intellectually, but you get the reward in the form of PhD. Although the ghost author would be willing to take your money to do all the job for you, but you see, it does more harm than good to the candidate itself. Although the candidate wants to do it, but yeah, there is a chance that things that they have written inside there is not even correct. It's not even verified and acknowledged by the candidate itself. So sometimes also it may carry some element of conflict of interest, whereby the writers might artificially cite the papers that are not qualified, not supposed to be cited, because that paper have some interest by the ghost author. They might artificially cite the papers that are benefiting for them. That also may happen. Because why? They don't have a name to it. They can do whatever they want. The name is the candidate who pays them. And this is what I get from Facebook. This is an advertisement I purposely censored so that you don't get the WhatsApp number. Because from the reply that I've seen from that WhatsApp post, no, not WhatsApp post, the Facebook post, and sure enough, what I suspected, that is a scam. People have paid and then they never received the service that they got and then they ran away. And worst part is that, yeah, like I said, those who paid are in the wrong in the first place. They can't complain. So there are a lot of urges that are preying desperate students who wants to get their job done quickly. And this is like 10 years ago, I got this. There is a service that openly sells that provide the service for writing the thesis. So you can see there undergraduate final year project students thesis can be done in 14 days, pages 50. Nowadays, you're going to get more than that. But look at the price. That time is 550 USD. Today, I would say is closer to 3,000. That money is a lot of money for an undergraduate student. So what is the solution? Now, in order to police give and ghost authorship, because there's no real victim here, because both parties are happy, it's very hard to catch. So nowadays, authorship must be predetermined during submission. Now, if you have the chance to submit your manuscript, the very first instance is the editor will ask you, who are the authors, their order, and what do they contribute? They're forcing us to state very early on those author. Because later, when during revision and publication, you cannot suddenly add authors. That is one way, yeah. So there are sometimes authorship in dispute. Some, like I said, some names appear in their paper where they don't even know who they are. I would say first thing first, don't take it to the media. because these things can be mediated. I know it because I myself involved in several before, in which the students are too afraid to approach the supervisor. So they talk to me, and we managed to come up with an amicable solution. The supervisor also acknowledged there is a mistake, and everything is done. You see, this happened in UiTM before with I mean the case that I know. But I have to share with you, there are several cases that happens outside of UiTM, still in Malaysia University, where they take it to social media. When everything is blown up, then somebody have to go. And unfortunately, it's the supervisor who were punished because of that so-called misconduct. So nobody have to do this. There's always a way that we can discuss and solve this amicably. Okay, so just now I told you what is duplicate and multiple submission, and this one is creativity, if I would say. Because why? We know we need a lot of papers just to show how productive we are. But you see, the research is just one. And usually one research, you can publish just one paper. And in this case, this researcher, not student, this researcher creatively rewrite the same manuscript in different styles, managed to submit to 8 journals, and they were published. The data, the content exactly the same, it's just the way they present it is different. They look different, they publish at the same time, but then they were discovered. So what happened is this researcher has been banned by that publisher, which means that other journals published by this same publisher has banned this researcher for a duration. Not sure how long, but a duration. So that has been barred. And of course, if this one appeared in Retraction Watch, where I get this article from, the reputation damage is the worst that I can think of that happened to this researcher. Okay, now I would say this is second last that I would need to cover. We call it predatory publication, and I think you must have heard it before, because this man over here is a librarian in University of Colorado, which he no longer serves and has already retired due to pressure from a prominent publisher internationally. Because in his list, they call it Bill's list, it's a list of allegedly predatory publisher, and inside there they have these big names. And these big names effectively go to his employer and got himself removed. Okay, that story aside, if I want to put credible journals versus predatory journals in perspective, it is exactly what you can see right here. Now, credible journals have a peer review process that that makes your life very difficult. Let's just be honest, because they need to challenge you to see if the data is indeed valid. So here's where you go. You need to go through hurdles after checks, just to make sure that what you do is indeed credible. Yeah. However, for predatory journals, they know you want to publish. They know. So all they want from you is money. They pay them an affordable sum, and they can just publish whatever you want to publish. So it's just like a red carpet welcoming you. You pay a certain fine and a certain sum of money, and then they publish for you. But here's the problem. They never check your article, or even if they checked it with very, very minimal effort. See the problem? That means if your paper accidentally have a mistake, they will still publish it and is seen by the international community. What leaves that possible mistake in doing research in the future? So that is the perspective that you have right here, and why we should avoid publishing in predatory journals is what you can see right here. Financial loss. Why? They always ask money from you. And nowadays in Malaysia, we are barred from publishing in any journals that are known to have the predatory reputation. So whatever you publish, you lose your data, you lose your money because you pay them, and that won't be recognized as the key performance indicator. So waste of time. But the worst part is the second and the third one. Because once people have published in a predatory journal, you are forever associated with fraud, not fraud, but uh, the lower quality side of the research. So that hurts you more than you can imagine. Nobody, I mean, at least people might doubt the validity of research that you publish later on. And it could also affect the public trust towards the scientific community, because if this happen, there are so many fraud, nobody would trust what we are doing for research, because they might question, are we sure that what you do is indeed trustable? And one example is that there are many signs that are in vaccines, and anti-vaxxers always use this as the excuse for them to champion their cause. Whereas those papers has already long been retracted, yeah, because of the fraud published by predatory journals. So how do we avoid it? First thing first, these are the tricks that you can see, the hints, yeah, that you can see from predatory journals. Now, these are just examples that you can see right there. It will always guarantees you a certain time frame to publish, and usually they guarantee you very fast publication. The moment you hear fast publication, just stop. That is not possible. Yeah, it's most likely the predatory journals. And then they always ask you for article publication charge. But here's the thing, most of the time they are very affordable. They are very affordable that maybe you can pay with several hundred, maximum 2,000. So the magic number that we discover is 2,000. Anything near 2,000 or less. More than that, we don't know, but they always charge you 2,000 because it's affordable, right? But not really, because nowadays everything gets more expensive. Accepts all articles despite not within the journal scope. Now, here is what you need to do. When you want to publish something, just don't simply publish in any journal, because some journal, they are reserved for a certain group of people who is in that research. So you have to make sure that the right people read your articles, but not predatory journal. They say anything goes. You just publish, pay them money, that's it. I mean, that itself, it's not serving your purpose. You want to spread knowledge to the right people, not simply publish. Kan? And then the telltale thing, usually these predatory journals, they are operated by non-expert, so that English also is not really there. Some even outright operated by fraudsters. So their English also, maybe there are some mistakes. The moment you can catch some English mistakes, that is also a telltale sign. And of course, because there's a element of cheating and fraud over there, they won't going to tell you who they are. So the ownership of the journal, the actual owners, the publishers, you don't know. The location also you don't know. They will never use their institutional email. They just use Gmail and whatnot. So these are the signs that are telling us that, no, stay away. There might be a possibility this is a predatory journal. So examples of predatory journal, as you can see right here, I will always check several sources, not just here. Now, here's a screen capture from Scopus of a journal called International Journal of Research Technology and Engineering that has been discontinued. They were first indexed in 2018, but the year after got removed for one simple reason. Number one, just look at how many papers they managed to publish in 2018, 196. That itself is a lot, but nothing can compare to the year after. It jumped 40 times compared to the year before, which is already a lot of paper. And I truly believe this is the reason why they got removed by Scopus, because they don't care about quality control. And another sign that it also lacks quality control is that subject area. You see, they publish everything from engineering, science, until business, as if like there's no particular scope that this journal wants to focus on. And of course, the name itself is very big here. Discontinued Scopus. Anything that has been discontinued by Scopus usually is associated with this issue, some problems lah. Now, the exact problem Scopus won't tell you, but if they are removed from Scopus, then okay, automatically stay away. That's all. Okay, so what's the dilemma? Some predatory journals, they can be there for some time, 1 year, 2 years before they are getting removed. So what if there's a new journal that behaves this way, then how do you know? I think the best way to avoid yourself from this issue is that you always ask, always check with your supervisor. If your supervisor is not really sure, check with the university research administrator. They should be able to help you. And just to reiterate, I have done many verification with UiTM staff as well as students before. So my successor in RMC, Dr. Amizon, will definitely able to help you. Or if you want to look for me, that's also can. I still can do it for you if you want to. Yeah. So last one, this is what we call hijack journal. Now, hijack journal, uh, it suddenly pops up in during pandemic time. That was the time where it has the most cases. Now, hijack journal is a fake journal altogether. You can say that people are misrepresenting and falsely representing a legitimate journal by creating another website, and usually scammers, they know how to operate this one. Usually they're targeting journals that don't use English. Later you see examples. So these are the examples. Now I received this email from Professor Zheng Bingwen. I searched the name, legitimate enough. He is a professor in China. But then I noticed that they don't use institutional email. Then I'm suspicious. Then why this person don't use institutional email? What is this person is trying to hide? I search the Google and this website pops up on top. So for some reason, um, this scammers also knows how to prop up uh, their their visibility in Google search. So they pop up first. I click, looks like legit, but then I happens to be able to read Mandarin and speak a few. So then I search, and this is the legitimate journal from Hong Kong. And one issue of this journal is that they don't have an English version. So literally, if you don't know Mandarin, you might fall into this trap. So a lot of people have already published here, and they just wasted their money. So what is the difference between predatory and hijack journal? The better question to ask is which one is the worst? And definitely the answer is hijack journal because of the element of fraud. In 2020, Elsevier mistakenly indexed content that comes from a hijack journal. But then they're very smart. They remove it later on, which is the right way, but they remove it quite silently. And what happened to those people who published in the hijack journal? They lost their money, they lost their credibility. Yeah, worst ever. So what do you need to do? Again, like I told you earlier, for predatory journals, it's the same thing. You always ask the community. There are many ways you can ask. You can ask in ResearchGate, you can ask in Schema Portal, you can even ask your supervisor, because I believe supervisor has the ability to distinguish between a fake and also a legitimate journal. So yeah, how I know that journal just now from Hong Kong is a fake one, I actually read their posts, the comments, and I noticed that, yeah, that is a fake one. And I also found the legitimate one from that post as well, under Schemago. I found it in Schemago. So there you go. Be careful. Now, why we should be maintaining our integrity in research is that, you see, the wrong things that we do today, we cannot guarantee that we can hide forever in the next 10 years because technology may catch up with us and we might get caught. That probably is the worst thing to happen when you are in the middle of a promotion. Yes, it has happened before in 2014. Let's make a lesson and yes, keep our integrity the highest possible. Um, so yeah, like I said, ethics, publication ethics is ever changing with the change of technology. So you have to get to the forefront of the news of what can be done and what cannot be done And most of all, yeah, talk to your supervisor. They should be the one who knows firsthand. And of course, you cannot run away. Some people may not follow the way we do. They are not very ethical in what they do. The first thing that we should do is that maintain your self integrity. Don't follow. I know there are temptation for you to follow because you're desperate, but they always pay to always abide from the rule because you never know when things may catch up. So okay, my final word to you: if you have doubt whether or not what you do is correct or not in terms of publication, always ask your supervisor. There are many people that you can refer to. If you found somebody who's doing it, don't join them, stop them. Okay? But if you are the one who is doing it and now only you know, it's okay. Just stop now and don't continue. Everything will be fine. Okay. So with that, I will end my talk by showing you this thing. Because I know in the end, in 1 or 2 years' time, you will need to publish 1 or 2 papers. So where can you publish? Probably these journals. Now, these are all published in UITM. And the editors, they're also UITM staffs. And I understand that you might want to aim for Web of Science or Scopus journals, which you can see right here. The top 4 from the left, these are index journal. But I think nowadays MySite journal also is recognized. And we have 41 of them. So send your manuscript, send it to them, have them evaluated. And if you get yourself published in one of these journals, consider yourself done with one KPI and just work a few more, then you're eligible for your oral examination. So no need to cheat, no need to violate any regulation in research publication. Just publish as it used to be and publish earlier. So with that, thank you for your time. I know I have talked, yeah, I think just at the right time. So there you go. This is all I need to tell you about research publication. And